Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. It's got a link tree. It's got all the other links. You just need to know that one URL. It's a very easy URL to remember because it's our name.
Yes. And what a good name it is.
You know,
Sorry.
How did we come up with that name? That's another story.
Yes.
Tangents. We do tangents on this show, too. It's fun. What we also do is talk about dark and macabre things. So I do have to say, with the disclaimer, that this is a horror podcast. You know, I've seen other YouTube channels watching on this now where they like divulge exactly what's in the episode because they know, but we don't know because it's a podcast. We do it off the cuff because it's fun. So without knowing what we may talk about, it could involve such sensitive subjects such as child abuse, rape, murder. There will be foul language.
Could be.
There can be foul language is allowed from here on out. So you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Okay.
Really towing that line.
Yeah. So with that out of the way, Steve, what do we have coming up in the near future?
Still got about 10 people on the guest list, so we won't go through that. Got 3 different conventions that we're going to try to hit by the end of the year. I've already missed one of them. Actually, it's today, so I won't bother listing those.
It's okay. I missed Comic-Con today. It's con season right now.
Today.
They all revolve around like Dragon Con. It's just like, Memorial Day weekend is con season.
Yes. Other events, we do 3 weekly events on our Discord server. We do a watch party on Saturdays, and then on Sundays we do a listen party where we stream our episodes of the podcast and chat about them while it's playing. And then Chris does a drawing party where he live streams himself working on his webcomic pieces, which you can also find at piecesoflesh.com. I've got a book called A Guide to the Recovery Toolbox, which you can find on Amazon and Lulu and Smashwords and all kinds of different places. Again, links to those are on the Linktree page, which you can find by going to our website, horrormakesushappy.com. But today we are talking to Ivotres Littles, the interviewer and reviewer on the Horror Movies and Beyond YouTube channel. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Our
Yes,
pleasure.
welcome to the show.
Before we get into the meat of the interview, is there anything special you want to let us know, maybe current events going on with your channel or future projects you're working on?
Oh man,
Or just go watch the channel.
Right.
I wasn't prepared. For that.
Should have warned you.
Okay, so I mean, I did do the 2 panels at Midsummer Scream, so those are almost done. I'm not editing them. My friend Matt Sempier is editing both of them: the How to Make a Horror Movie Producers panel and the Satanic Hispanic Unveiled panel, and he's doing both of them. And so hopefully in the next week or so, those would be out and about on my YouTube channel and stuff like that. So, and they were pretty awesome. It was the most magical thing I ever had in my life doing that.
Yeah, Midsummer Scream sounds awesome. Is that like because it happens in the middle of the summer, I assume?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I got that. I picked up what they put down there. Yes. I'm as smart.
Yeah, that was the guest on the panels, and it was just the most magical thing I've ever done. It was hard work, 8 months of preparing and doing all that stuff. Yeah, you just get the space and you do everything yourself. So it was just me. And hopefully I will be working on putting my own movies out there. So, so people could rip them apart.
Right. That is the goal, to make a thing, put it out to the world, and then get ripped apart.
Something dishing it, something taking it.
They both happen. They are both a given.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the thing that you mentioned was being edited now. When do you expect those to be released?
They're almost done. I believe they'll both be done next week because he's editing. He's a filmmaker himself. So his movie, Creeping Death, comes out. I'm not like promoting it or anything, but his movie does come out. Yeah. Next month. So he is like super busy and he's in a band or whatever. So he's doing this for me. So I'm not complaining. I'm not arguing with this.
No, I was going to say, when you mentioned he's your editor, hats off to Matt, your editor, because I do appreciate the people that do the editing, of which I do none on this show. And Steve does 100%
wink, wink.
of it.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve.
So I mean, he's not a continuing editor. He just I don't. Someone told me about somebody, and I met him, and he decided to bring all three cameras, all three, him and two friends, and decided to film my panels.
Cool.
Yeah, but in it was a lot of networking, people meeting producers they never met. I had Chad Villela on there, who is Radio Silence, on my panel. So everybody was excited to meet him, and everybody was networking. It was just such a cool thing. But everybody that was on my panels were all friends. Like I've met them. We've had drinks. We've hung out. So they wasn't all strangers. So that was cool. But anyway,
well, great experience.
By the time this gets out there, because our lead time is more than a week, so by the time this gets out there, your stuff will be available. We are going to put together a bio page for you on our website and link to whatever it is that you want to link to, so you can give us links to that stuff. Again, listeners can come to horrormakeushappy.com to find the episodes page and get to you through that. And we can share whatever links you want to share as well. I mean, we already mentioned the Horror Movies and Beyond YouTube channel, so they should be able to find that too.
Of which you have a new sub.
2.
Ah, yes. 2 new subs.
2 new subs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess we can just jump straight into childhood. What are some of your earliest memories of scary things?
My family.
Okay.
That's a good start.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah. It was, well, the first horror movie was The Thing. I was about maybe 4 or 5.
Wow. Okay. Didn't start strong.
Yeah, it's a funny story. I always like to tell it when people ask me questions about when was your first time? And I was like, oh yeah, I was like 4 or 5, and I was forced to watch The Thing.
Forced? Like they sat you down and you were like, you will watch this.
Yeah, because no, I'm not even.
This is a classic. You have to appreciate it, and you'll understand later.
Right.
Well, I wish it was like that. It didn't turn out. It didn't start off that way. I'm sure. What happened was, my parents were like in the living room, and I was supposed to be in the bedroom with my sister and her friend, and I kept sneaking out and trying to see what they were doing, like hiding behind the couch.
Okay. So they used the full pack of cigarettes method. Yes. They're like, oh, if you want to watch this, you're going to watch it.
Yep. And they kept telling me to go in the room. You can't see this. It's scary. And then I would run in there, but I would come out and still sneaking around like Mission Impossible, trying to see what they were doing. So finally they hit pause and was like, okay, you're going to watch this. And I sat down. They sat me between them. And they pressed play, and the scene was when Norris's head pulled apart from the body, right after Copper's arms got torn off. Yeah. And I tried to cover my hands. They said, "No, put them down, and you're going to look at this."
You were just in time for You Got to Be Fucking Kidding Me. That's perfect.
So that whole scene, into the head crawled to the doorway, and then after that. I was like screaming and hollering and scared. I said, now we told you, now go in the room. So
now go to bed. Now go try to sleep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And many years later, it became my favorite horror movie of all time over anything else in the world. But that's another story.
It's another question, actually. But we'll get
well, so the follow-up I would ask to that is, so did you try to sneak any of the rest of that movie?
No, I completely...
that was enough?
Yeah, right? I completely forgot about... I remember seeing the cover in many different... kind of aged myself when VHS, when mom and pop stores were the thing. Well, literally. And
it's okay. We're both also old and appreciate bad jokes.
And I would always see the cover, and I never watched it. My mom would tell me, "Oh, that's the scariest movie ever," but I didn't remember that was the movie because I only saw the cover. I didn't know that was I didn't put 2 to 2 together until one day when I got a little older, probably close to my teens, but not really. And we watched it, and I was like, "Oh, that's the movie." Yeah.
So, any other horror media jump out to you from your childhood that you remember? Maybe not as strong as that one. But,
That one probably overshadows everything else.
No, I really didn't watch horror movies until, well, I was kind of dragged to them. It wasn't something, oh, I want to watch this movie. I was kind of dragged to go see them because I was very young. Like my sisters are like 6 years older and plus. So, and everyone was, well established and a little older than me. So, the movies at the time I was into was like Weird Science, Ghostbusters and all that stuff. But the movies I was dragged to was like Evil Dead 2. I didn't see Evil Dead, the first one, because it came out in, I think, 80. I was way too small, but or barely here, one of them. But either way, so I remember seeing Evil Dead 2 at the drive-in.
Nice.
So that was a great experience, sort of. But I was dragged with my sister because she would go on her date and I would sit in the back seat and we would look at that. So, and then going to the movies, I saw Pet Sematary, The Fly, but I was dragged, we're all going to the movies and I don't know what they're watching. And I'm sitting there screaming and covering up my eyes. So it was kind of forced for a while until later.
I mean, those are some good ones definitely to start with. It's funny is when we usually ask that question, sometimes we get stuff, like Goosebumps or whatever, Secret and Nim. But then we also sometimes get kind of off the wall stuff that, like Secret and Nim, has some very spooky atmosphere stuff going on in different parts of the movie. But like I remember one of our first guests mentioned An American Tail with Fievel, the little mouse, gets separated from his family in the fog, and like that freaked him the hell out. Even though it's not supposed to be necessarily a really scary movie, so it's interesting what sticks in our minds from childhood. And so that's kind of where I was going with that. And, you mentioned Weird Science and Ghostbusters, but Evil Dead and Pet Sematary and The Fly, clearly enough of it stuck with you that you remembered them.
Yeah, I remember seeing those. But I guess my fondest memories was going to the drive-in when they were popular, when it was like the thing. So I keep saying that. Anyway,
it was
Aliens is my second favorite movie in the entire world above anything else. So, but I saw that at the drive-in.
Okay.
And so I experienced that firsthand, and it's just I can't explain it unless you went to the drive-in. It's the most fascinating thing to experience because it was packed. People had lawn chairs, kids are playing in the dark at the park in the middle, and you can see other movies, the popcorn, you have to walk a mile to get to the and you go up and down those hills, up and down, because your car has to be up a little bit, and hatchbacks and people climbing out of the trunks because they don't want to pay for the extra people. I mean, we used to do that. It's like lay down and put covers over you. I mean, that's one of the best memories I've ever had. But the movies that we went to go see were horror movies, mostly. The Ghoulies. That was Critters. Yeah.
My favorite memory of drive-ins was when I lived in Wisconsin. It was me, my dad, my stepmother, and my sister. And this particular movie theater was actually really interesting. They had two different screens set up back to back so that the parents could be watching one movie on one screen, and then you'd have the kids look out the back window and watch a movie on the other.
Okay. That's smart.
Yeah, the one that really sticks in my memory is they were watching Clash of the Titans on the adult screen and Muppets Take Manhattan on the kids screen, and so I'd keep going back and forth between the two different movies because you'd have a lull in one and then you'd watch the other, and then the lull over here, so you watch that one. So basically, watch two movies at the same time.
It's time to release the Kraken.
Yes. Now I'm picturing an alcohol commercial. That's that could go wrong in so many directions.
Yeah.
Well, so you said you liked Weird Science and Ghostbusters. Let's start with Weird Science. What'd you like about Weird Science?
Well, there is a common theme of movies like that. What I liked about Weird Science was I was a different type of kid. I was weird. I was very, I don't know. I was something. And watching it as a kid is different than watching it as an adult. I shouldn't have been watching that movie because there were some parts where, yeah, I shouldn't have, but I didn't understand it. So I'll let it slide at the time. But it was just like these two kids that were like the underdogs and always get picked on and treated bad. And finally someone saw them for who they were and gave them a chance. But at the same time had to defend them and fight for them. And I mean, they could have done it at some point, but to just have somebody on their side and bully the bullies for once, let them feel what the kids were feeling. And I was an awkward kid growing up. I was bullied all the time and treated differently. So I didn't watch Weird Science till after my dad died, because that's where the bullying started happening for me. So it was just different. I wanted to have a friend. I wanted to make a friend. I wanted to be saved. So it was way different. Now it's just fun and whatever. But at the time, it meant something. Yeah.
And I can't think of the right word. Female empowerment is the one that's coming to mind, but something and I don't want to say protagonist because she wasn't the protagonist, but the character, if you will, that they created. I can't remember her name. The horrible name.
Lisa.
Sure. Like I said,
no, her name was Lisa.
It was
I'll take your word for it. Okay.
Hey, my guy's license, Lisa.
Yeah. But it wasn't had anything. I didn't care what she was. Like, I didn't care. I didn't look at her like, oh, she's a female doing in female empowerment. I didn't know what that was as a kid. It was just someone saving
more
me.
Identifying with the kids.
Yeah.
How old were you when you saw Weird Science?
I was probably 7, 8.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so that tracks. At that point, you don't really recognize or even know about those things. Just it's a weird movie.
Yeah.
What about Ghostbusters? You said there was some common theme there.
For Ghostbusters, it was just fun, and I didn't see it. I didn't see anything in it, but it was just a fun, cool movie. I didn't understand half the jokes, and that I used to watch that when my dad was alive, and it was my favorite movie at the time. So if I was sad or something, he would put it in for me, the VHS machine, and press play and watch it with me.
Okay.
It was just a comfort, fun movie. And then also the cartoon, and then I had the lunchbox, but I was also into Voltron, He-Man. I was a tomboyish. So, yeah.
They had all the cool toys.
Yeah, I had the cool toys.
I saw a picture from my childhood the other day where I was getting Castle Grayskull on Christmas. And I was like, where the fuck is that?
Well, that was one side. The other side, I love My Little Ponies. So, and I love horses. So it was, the soft and hard side of my personality, I guess. So, yeah.
So was your father a horror fan?
I don't know. He died in 87. So I don't know anything about him but what I remember of how he was around me. And I had to go off what was told to me, and then 30 something years later the truth was told to me. So it was just ugh. But I wish I'm maybe he was, because I don't know, maybe I can't even answer, because I don't remember seeing anything scary with him. It was like Superman. We watched Superman together.
Was there anybody else in the family who was a fan of horror?
I'm assuming my mom, because we went to a lot of horror movies with her and her sister or the kids or whatever. But I don't know if she just went because the other kids wanted to go. I have no idea. But I do remember her going, then my dad. And then I remember seeing The Blob in the movie theater. So
87, The Blob, I think.
Yeah, the 80s Blob.
The newer one.
The 80s, yeah. So I remember seeing that with my mom. but if it's 87 after March, then it was after my dad died. So I think somewhere up in there.
Some guests have mentioned that there was sort of like a dividing line in their life where prior to this line, they were afraid of horror, and then after it, they enjoyed it. Was there some sort of dividing line for you where you're like, okay, now I like this stuff? I mean, you mentioned The Thing, and that was definitely terrifying.
No, I don't think there was a line anywhere. I think it just, I guess so. I mean, I know that's a hard, like, I don't know. I can't explain it. But what I can say is that horror has always been part of my life, watching the movies and living it, because my family was violent, abusive, and then we go see horror movies. And so it was just around me at all times, regardless of what. So there was no line between what is real and what is, the horror movie, especially as a kid. Now I'm talking as a kid. Adult, I know now. Right. But as a kid, it was just, you go home, there's arguing, fighting, and abuse, and then you go to the movies, and then you go to church, but there's arguing, fighting, and abuse. So to me, there was just, I don't know, everything was just violent and weird around me. But I guess when my dad died, he was murdered by my sister. So I've seen things firsthand, and it took me years to cope with it, but it still bothers. But it's like, it's part of my history. It's my life. Like, I can't run or whatever. So
can't change it.
So after my dad died, that's when we started watching and doing whatever. But I think my dad was more like a protector for me. He probably wouldn't want me to see scary movies like that. I think forced to watch it was my mom's idea. I don't think my dad would do any of that, even though they were both together, sitting down on the floor watching it. But my mom was also into the voodoo. She's witchcraft. She was also, she was knowledgeable of that stuff because she grew around it. And my dad, I'm not sure, but I've met his his sister. I talked to her after 30 something years, and I could tell they were very church going family, and they just wasn't into that. So I'm just assuming here that my mom was knee deep into the terrifying things. But yeah, so living that, seeing my dad die. I saw my dad die. Like, I was touching him when he died. So, and I was 6.5 years old, and he bled out because he was stabbed in the back. So I saw all of that. And right after that, I was sexually abused. So by the same sister. So I lived it. I breathed it. So to me, there was no transition. It was just horror movies and violence in my family, and just welcome it all. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but to say it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, that is important to the whole development, and like the kind of thing that we get at with asking these questions is, was there any change in your appreciation or how you viewed horror? And that definitely does change things or skew things when something like that happens in your life without your control. Like, well, yeah, horror was a part of my life because this happened.
Yeah. I mean, not even referring to the fictional genre.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm very sorry that all of that shit happened. That does answer some questions, because I was like, as soon as you said that your sister was the one that killed your father, like, I already started having certain ideas of what that meant. And then it was interesting that you said that he, in a way, was almost more of a protector for you, because that just makes things complicated.
Also takes care of the question for the childhood of, has anything in real life ever happened to you that was terrifying? Yeah, check, box check.
Yeah. As a bit of a palate cleanser, normally we ask those questions in pairs, and then we follow up with asking, was there ever a time in your childhood when you felt completely calm or safe or at bliss?
Well, I could answer that.
Okay.
It's the only time when my dad was alive. The only time because he was my dad. My mom, my three sisters, they were already established when he came into the family. So he got a lot of warnings from his family and friends say, hey, I don't think you should be in that family. They just seemed not all put together. But he loved my mom. He fell in love with my mom. And I think he was blinded by the idea that he really wanted a child, and he wanted a boy. And surprise. So he didn't
Explains
care.
the tomboy part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't care. I was climbed roofs, trees. I was crazy, little girl. I was just wild. But I also, he noticed I was an artist, so he comfort that. He would buy me art supplies, crayons, watercolors, acrylics, and help me paint. He knew I loved pancakes, sausage sandwiches. I mean, he always comforted me. And when I loved Fruit Loops, he would get those. But most of all, I loved horses. I adored horses, and he would surprise me with a My Little Pony or something. But one of the greatest things he's ever done that stuck with me was at school, because I was the only one who went to a private school. He wanted me to go to a private school, and I was his only daughter. They were the stepkids. And so everybody left the school, and I thought my parents forgot about me because I was like the last kid. Well, turns out they walked me out to the field, and my dad was standing there with a horse. So he had the stable next door, and they walked over a horse. It was him and the trainer, and he walked over with a horse, and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And I got to get on the horse, and they walked us around the school. And they did that awesome, so the other kids couldn't see it. So nice. Yeah, and that was
really jealous.
You don't want to taint the experience. This is all a very nice and wholesome experience, and that's good that he was looking out for that too. Like, oh wait, she's gonna get a bunch of shit at school if they see her. So no, let's take care of that too.
Yeah. So that's
I don't know about that. I mean, she'd probably be very popular.
Nah, kids, they'll find a way to make sense of anything awful. True. Yeah. She'd be popular for about 10 minutes, and then it would be a resentment. Oh, you're the horse girl.
You're right. That would actually happen. But yeah, that was...
Start making whinnying noises. Sorry.
Jesus.
Kids are cruel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, one of the best things. And I remember him saying, he said, when you turn 15, I'm going to get you a horse. And... still, it feels like part of me, that little kid's still waiting for that horse. But that's that's a choke. That's a crying moment. But I still bring that up into myself. But anyway.
As an adult, you can get one for yourself now.
But right? they're expensive. I don't have the funds to do that. But I've gone horseback riding, and I've pet them and hang out with them, but it's just something about that moment when he said that. Mm-hmm. And then he passed away, and it was, the way he passed away was kind of not just being stabbed, but it was, he knew that it was time to go, because the relationship with him and my mom was just terrible. Like, the kids were bad, whatever. He called his sister and said, I'm ready to go. And not even 2 days later, they got a call that he was dead. Well, they didn't tell him he was dead. It was like an accident, but he was dead. He was already dead. So they lied to his family. They didn't know how he died. They never knew how he died until they found me on Facebook about 5 years ago. Wow. So his mom and his dad never knew how he died, because they died not knowing. Yeah.
Which in some sense may have been blessing. But yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just to get this out of the way
Mhm.
and not have it be a potential elephant in the room. So there was somebody that I had dated many years ago who was a social worker, and she told me some stories about some of the cases without divulging any specifics about anonymity and things like that.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. I mean, between that and the stories that you're telling us about your father, I'm guessing the essay that your sister endured may not have been from your father, or was that the case?
I'm sorry. The essay was from what? What?
So you mentioned that your sister was the one who was abusing you.
Yes.
It's a very difficult question to ask, but was your father one that was abusing your sister?
No.
Okay.
No. My dad never. I mean, they were. If you're bad, you get spanked, but they were big kids. Like, she was 6. I think the other one was 10, and then I think 13. So they were big kids, and they had their own father.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, I've never heard of him abusing them or doing horrible things. Now, one of my sisters said, "Oh, he would make us make up our beds." It's like, what?
That's
the
parenting.
The way, yeah, it was like the things that they complained about were things you should be doing when an adult parent is asking you to do it. Because my mom was spoiled them. They even had their own credit cards at one time. My mom made 6 figures in the 80s.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay. My mom was very smart. She was a psych nurse, but she had her own office with doctors. Like my mom was my mom was a genius almost. And my dad was very smart. He was the first Black man to be, in Huntington Beach as the National Guard. He was a chef. He was in the Navy. So I had some really intelligent family members. They just did stupid things. And my dad never touched me in a way. I've never heard that sexually anybody. He just wanted to he was just trying to be a father to some kids that were terrible.
Okay.
So, and my mom would take their side.
The reason I asked was because you'd mentioned learning something about him when you were 30. So I didn't know if that's what was.
Oh, no. What I learned, because they would tell me, oh, he was the devil. He was a demon. I mean, my sister even called the press telegram here and wrote a whole paper of how he talks in demon voices and stuff like that. And I didn't even know until one day my mom had me the newspaper and I'm reading this. And I was just like, you're proud of your daughter putting this out here and you know it's a lie. I don't understand. And that's what I had to grow up with. And I didn't believe it because he never did any of that around me. He never did anything to me. And to be as young as I was, I remember his death very vividly, beat by beat and everything. So if I can remember details of movies and where I was, believe me, I would remember someone doing some terrible things like that, especially him. But many years later, for his sister to find me on Facebook, I mean, she's in her 70s, early 80s or something like that, and say, hey, your dad loved you. He had pictures of you in his wallet. Everywhere he went, he talked about it. You were everything. He really wanted to leave your mom, but that happened. And that's when they asked me, like, how did he die? And I was like, you're joking. And they was like, no, we don't know. This whole family never knew. They wouldn't tell us. And when you were at the funeral, we would pull you away and everyone would keep you with your mom. And I was like, I kind of remember them, but I always remembered being around my mom. And then there was a picture that they sent me of me in this certain dress. And I thought it was for Easter Sunday. And they said, no, that was your dad's funeral, because I was told that was Easter Sunday. So yeah, it was a big secret. And then finally to tell them, and then that's what she finally said, your dad loved you. You were everything. And I just cried because I was told everything for 30, but I knew he loved me. It was just the way she put it. And I felt bad because they had to relive the death over again because his mom died not knowing, and they've been looking for me, and they would hide me away because I knew. And I had to lie as a kid. I had to say I didn't remember when I was a kid because they kept asking me, do you remember how he died when I was little? My sister, my mom, and a therapist would always ask me. But I knew if I said, yeah, my sister did it, I would be dead. Guaranteed. Yeah. Guaranteed. Yeah. Sorry.
No. I mean, I'm doubling down on that a bit and thinking to myself, there's no statutory limitation on murder charges.
Because she said it was self-defense. Oh, he was an abusive man. Now, believe me, I remember, cops being called, coming over, but I don't remember violence. Like, I don't know, arguing, yelling. We had neighbors around us. We stayed in a really, really nice neighborhood. So we were well off. Like there was no, and I was going to private school and it was expensive. Yeah. So,
what I'm getting at here is, so like you say, the cops were called and apparently no charges either, I guess, weren't filed because of the story that they got told by all the other family members. But I'm also guessing that you probably didn't tell the truth there. So you now telling people what you know would be considered new evidence.
Well, at the time, no one decided to talk to me because they thought, oh, she's too young.
Well, like I said, this is all potentially new evidence that the police have probably never heard.
No, but I don't want to go down that road. He's long dead, gone. He's in the ground. His mom is gone. His sister just died last year. I mean, it's like, and my mom died last year by my sister. So it just, but I'm not there to say she did it, but it's pretty bad situation. And no one wants to take my side. I'm the black sheep of the family. So I don't talk to anybody. Just like the nieces and nephews in my family. That's pretty much it. But it's just, I would have to fight my sister. I would have to go down the road of just I don't want to do that.
Right.
Even if
that much effort and hardship,
it's just I
get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. I mean, like, there's somebody that I probably could have and should have press charges on when I was younger that I didn't know any better, and same thing. Now it's like, well, should I even? And the answer is probably not. What good is it going to do now?
It's not going to do anything. But I could say the last thing I could say about that is, she still hates me or whatever. I have no idea. But what she did to me, the abuse, the beatings, the whips, the sexual stuff, whatever. And then on top of that, on his anniversary of his death, my mom died. So she called to let me know, oh, I'm so sorry, your mom died. Isn't this when your dad died years ago? I hung up in her face. I'm done. I am done.
That's interesting, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. She hates me.
I want to speak out a line here, but the first thing that comes to mind is that woman is a villain.
Yeah.
Wow.
I live my own horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I just gravitated towards it as a later in life, or just how I have it around me, because it's normal when I'm walking around and I'm wearing a horror movie shirt or something. Oh my God, you're getting ready for Halloween. I said, no, this is every day. Mm-hmm. This is every day. And I mean that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
speaking of costumes, switching gears and enlightening the mood, did you participate in Halloween as a kid?
Oh, not really. Well, I did go trick or treating and stuff like that. And, you know, the 80s and 90s trick or treating is nothing compared to today. I mean, you could even wait till it gets dark. I mean, the streets were packed, and then houses had. I mean, they gave out real candy. I mean, it was crazy.
Full bars.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I did participate in that. The only thing I didn't get a chance to wear my own costume. Like, I could not. If I wanted to be a vampire, I couldn't be a vampire. If I wanted to be this and that.
Hand-me-downs?
Yeah, well, no, not really hand-me-downs. It was just no.
So your costumes were dictated to you.
Yeah. So that's how, and it got to the point I never wore a Halloween costume ever. The last time I dressed up was last year or the year before or something like that.
Yeah, I can understand how that would put a sour taste in your mouth, the whole experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how it was for a very, very long time till I was like 18. When I hit 18, you can't tell me what to do type attitude. F all you guys. So, and that's why I started to try to be myself. But it also, all that trauma came out, and that's a whole nother mess and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand. My childhood was not as bad as yours, but it was definitely not fun for me either. And I knew that, there are different people who talk about, maybe their high school years were the best part of their life and, that kind of thing. But for me, I always knew that my adult years were going to be the best part of my life because my childhood fucking sucked. And so it was kind of like, it's got to go up from here. Yeah. So I'm hoping it has gone uphill for you since then.
I know, like, it has
in ways, yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, but in ways it did. But I still, all that trauma has to come out.
Yeah,
it came out from my early like 19s and stuff to my 30s. Like, I was going through bad relationships, self-esteem issues. I can honestly say I've never had a drug problem or a drinking problem, or I never prostitute myself out. Like,
that is an accomplishment with the shit you've had to deal with. The fact that you didn't fall into drugs it's good.
Some she didn't have other problems.
Some therapists were surprised that when I started seeing a therapist, was like, you never did a drug. I was like, no. You never started drinking. No. And there were drunks in my family, and there were druggies in my family, and I never touched the stuff. Now, mind you, I had a drink. You drink, but it never did anything. Like, I never had a problem with it because I still had hope. I still was like, I still want to do something with myself. I don't want to go down that road because I seen what happens firsthand when you are drinking. Uncles dying, kidneys failing, livers are going, and it's the most painful thing you could ever see someone go through. And some people just don't understand it. I've seen drugs where, my sister sold crack and my mom smoked it. I mean, I've been there. I've seen it all and all kind of shit. I've seen people brains get blown out and they're laying on the ground. I've seen people, get beaten and stabbed and punched and missing and murdered. I grew up watching that stuff, and I think watching horror movies, it's the same. Like, I'm still in it. Like, it doesn't. It's like, okay, oh well, what's next? Oh, I don't want to watch a horror movie because somebody's brains fall out. To me, it doesn't bother me. I've seen real brains. I've seen how that happens. But yeah, and I think that's why transitioning. Like, I want to start writing and doing horror movies, and a friend of mine who wants to work with me on some stuff, he said, man, you have experience. You've seen it firsthand. I'm like, yeah. So watch out for my horror movies that come out.
No shit.
I will.
Horror is life. Horror is my life. It's everywhere.
Yeah, there's a rock bottom there for sure.
I can laugh about it.
Yeah, you gotta laugh,
I mean, people in recovery have that phrase rock bottom. I mean, it is a significant experience. People talk about how if I didn't get out of this, that it was going to kill me. I mean, they're not talking about, I don't want to say they're not talking about real death, but many of them are. I mean, like if you're an alcoholic and you don't, get away from the alcohol, then it literally will kill you. It's not going to kill you in the same ways that she's talking about here, but death is death. And the real fear of mortality, I mean, that's fucking rock bottom. I mean, the fact that she has had these experiences, you can learn about something by hearing about it, by seeing it, or by doing it. Mm-hmm. And not everybody is able to learn in each of those three ways. There are some people that will only be able to learn by doing it. And so, to be able to learn just by experiencing it and seeing it, that's enough, and so it's good that she's, I hate to say the bad turn of phrase to say it's good that she was able to learn just by seeing it, but you know what I'm saying? It's rather than having to experiencing it yourself, you've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an awakening. Like the hardest thing is to realize you got a problem. And then you can heal from that. And I couldn't understand the patterns of why I love horror movies. Like it took me a while because I would get that question all the time. Like, and I was like, oh, because I grew up with it. But really, it's just my life. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything different except for one is fake and one is real. And I can't see anything else. And I think if I thought about quitting like horror movies and beyond and just don't do this anymore. But as I sat there, I was like, I worked so hard. I don't think I would live. I think this is what keeps me alive, talking about it, giving my experience, because no one told me or helped me understand any of this stuff. And when I do my interviews and things like that, so I have people that come on my show, express things they never expressed before. I have people come out with their sexual orientation. I have people just like crying, and and they're directors, like some of the top directors. And they're just like, oh man, I felt so comfortable. Because I understand the experience. I see past what you're writing. I see the source that it's coming from. Yeah, because I've been there. I lived it. Yeah.
I think we're traveling in similar circles. I'll just put it that way.
I was just thinking, like, sometimes we have guests that are blindsided by our format, and I think it's just going to be a bunch of questions about their movie and their career, and sometimes we have guests that are in the same line. And yeah, it sounds like your YouTube channel is similar to ours, where there are some revelations, if you will.
Yeah,
we get deep.
Yeah. Well, let's jump towards some teenage years and see what pops up there. What were some of the scarier stories or books or movies that you remember from your teenage years?
Oh man, okay, that's when Nickelodeon was popping.
That was not the answer I was expecting.
I know, right? Like, well, now things are going to get really dark. Let me tell you about Nickelodeon.
Well, because I'm thinking, okay, what was I watching? Like 10 to like 15. I was into, Nickelodeon. So okay. I was like,
talking about a palate cleanser.
Yeah, I was into, what was I watching? I watched a lot of sci-fi. There was a lot of sci-fi going on, especially like Flight of the Navigator, things like that, like movies like that. But when it comes to a little bit into the horror parts for teens, it was Are You Afraid of the Dark? Tales from the Crypt. Sometimes Nickelodeon had a Nick at Night, where they had little creepy things go on, especially during the Halloween. And then Goosebumps. I read Goosebumps books. Some of those, man, they were scary. Or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Right.
I used to read those. Disappointed by the movie, but that's another time. But yeah, like that kind of stuff. Now, I didn't get into horror movies. Like you would think so, but no, not really. I was more sci-fi.
Okay.
Puppet Master. No, The Puppet Master, not Puppet Master.
The Puppet Master?
No, I think it's Puppet Masters. No, Puppet Masters. It's the one where
oh yeah, the one with the aliens that would like get into people's necks.
Yeah, Kiefer. I think it was Kiefer. Donald Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he.
And the guy who was the protagonist was the same guy from Twin Peaks, wasn't he?
No.
He's not. I'm thinking of another movie where people had parasites in him.
Yeah, he kind of had similar hair, but I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
I totally forgot about Puppet
But he was in the movie Hidden. That guy from Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
Hidden.
That's what I'm getting Puppet Masters in Hidden.
Yeah. So I was into that kind of stuff during that time, but not horror yet.
Right. It's not. That's not unexpected. There are a couple different paths that our guests have taken through life, and one of them is to have horror in their childhood and then go away from it in their teens and then come back to it in their adult life. So that's not uncommon.
Well, I did watch horror movies. Like me and my niece would go to the local video store. We would on Friday nights and get horror movies, but it wasn't the norm because I was also playing Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega, Nintendo, and I was also doing that too.
Exploring other avenues.
Yeah. So, and then I got introduced to boys, and now I'm talking on the phone all night.
Right.
So,
important stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So, Afraid of the Dark. Was there a particular story that stood out to you from that series?
There was a dollhouse one. A girl got stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember like everything about the story, but she got stuck in the dollhouse. But there were some creepy ones, but it's so long ago. Oh gosh, I barely can remember anything, but I remember more of Tales from the Crypt. And those were new episodes. Like there weren't no reruns. I was watching the new ones that come out. So I'm an old lady.
Is there a particular episode that jumped out to you from those?
There was the one from when Christopher Reeves was in the steak one, like his business was failing and his business partner killed the guy, and then they couldn't do something with the body, so he chopped him up and was selling this as steaks.
Was that Christopher Reeves?
That was Christopher Reeves. It was I forgot what
I
forgot what the diner was called, but yeah, the police guy came over and he was hungry and he was like, I really don't care. I'm just want one of those steaks. So that
Here
one,
you go.
The one with Don Rickles with his parasitic twin brother was stuck to his hand. Well, it was his hand. And he chopped it off, and he was like the puppet, like control the puppet.
Oh, ventriloquist.
The ventriloquist. That one.
Yeah, I think I do remember this one now. Yeah, because he was such a good ventriloquist because
it was his brother and
it was his brother
on his hand. Yeah, there's some couples. Yeah, that was pretty good. The voodoo one with Whoopi Goldberg. They had a lot of like stars on there. So
yeah.
You already mentioned nothing about Halloween, so we'll skip that. We skipped this question for the childhood section for obvious reasons. I suspect we might have a similar situation here for teens, but there's a question we normally ask whether or not you had any reoccurring dreams or nightmares.
Why you laugh?
Duh.
What could be the reason for nightmares?
There's a couple of them. Just a couple of them. There was one that I used to have all the time, and I would have a friend, and they would either be a mermaid or they could fly. And we would be friends, and then they would leave. It was time for them to go back to wherever they need to go. So like she would sit on the tub. The tub is full of water. And she's about to leave. And I say, wait, don't go. And like, oh, I got to go back to wherever I'm going. And I said, can I go with you? And she said, not yet. And she would go in. And then the same thing would happen. I would meet a friend who's a boy this time, and he would teach me how to fly, but I could never stay in the air. Like I would go up, but always come down. It was just, I just couldn't stay for some reason.
For I'm just sorry.
Oh, that was okay.
I think as an adult, we understand the reasons you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a dream. So,
Yes,
and he was trying to teach me how to fly, but I just could not stay in the air long enough. And so after a while, he had to leave. And I was like, I don't want you to leave. And he's like, oh, but I got to go back, and I was like, can I go with you? And he would say, not yet.
Not yet.
And then fly away. And that would happen a few times. It was always not yet, not yet. And they kind of ended. Like after a while, I didn't have them anymore. But those are the only ones. I never had a dream about my dad. I never had a dream, which I thought was weird. I never had one.
Well, I mean, everything that you've talked about so far is, we could easily tie them to what was going on. I mean, wanting to escape, wanting to fly away, wanting to go with the mermaid,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's subconscious interpretations you can do.
All I can say is I'm glad that they weren't worse dreams, because given the situation, they could have been some really bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't, based on what I went through, you would think I would, oh my God, you would have, no.
Well, it's also understandable to have the opposite, because like you say, it's like that in real life. Then the brain wants to escape. So,
Yeah. And that's what dreams are, in a way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving into adult years, what has really stood out to you as, impactful in terms of horror for your adult years?
There's a movie that I watched. It's old though.
Okay.
It was one of those movies I knew I wasn't healed completely, and it was The Conjuring. Now I know it's like The Conjuring.
Conjuring was spooky. There were some spooky moments. The kid had tattoos all over him, but they weren't really tattoos.
But I think it was more with that, because I read this. I was watching it a little differently. I watched it as if I was. I think it was Catherine. Was it Catherine?
Okay.
I think her name was
the mother.
Yeah, the mother. I was watching her as it was me, still going through stuff and trying to keep the family together, trying to do all these things to protect the family, and she couldn't. She couldn't protect herself or the family. And even though she wanted to escape from it, it was like things were holding her there, because she sometimes you just can't up and leave what is causing the danger. You just have to face it. And it consumed her, and it became part of her because she was tired. And I felt that. Like I felt when I think it was Bathsheba finally got inside her. It was just, you just give up. I'm going to accept what it is. And I guess throughout the film, it was me. Like I was watching me. And the part that broke me, like it just broke me to the point I had to press pause, and I was just bawling my eyes out, was when, after everything that happened and she grabbed the little girls and took them back to the house, she just went through the change and to become Bathsheba. But there was a particular scene. The particular scene is when the medium touched her and and she read like, oh, you guys are on the beach and doing all these things, and you would do anything for them. And she said, I would do anything for my family. They're everything. And then later, obviously they were in the basement trying to save her and all these things. And she crawled away under the house, and they were trying to get to her, and they just could not get to her. Oh my God. I'm about to cry. Sorry. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, I'm trying to tell this story. Oh my God, it still affects me to this day. She's underneath the house, and everybody's reaching to her, and she couldn't get. And then Lorraine. And right when she was finna get her daughter, Lorraine reached down and touched her head. and showed her what she would lose if she did that. And she said, remember, you said they mean the world to you. And then, we watching her laughing and smiling, and they take a photo. And that broke me, because I looked at it as that dark place where no one could reach you. And I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been in that dark place. And I just felt like I was in the dark room, and people would reach out to me, and I didn't want them touching me. I didn't want them to save me. But because I never really had a person to save me. I always had to save myself. And I kind of looked at the story like that until Lorraine reached in. And there was a moment in my life someone did that for me. Oh my God. Hold on. Sorry. Oh, I'm trying to. Whew. And somebody.
It's okay. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Someone did that for me, because I was at that point where I didn't want to be here. I made that decision. I planned it. And they showed me, and it was like, look what you've done. And look what you can do. And it changed my life, because I bought the rope. I was standing with it on my neck. And all I had to do was move, and I wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. So that's so every time I think of that, it's like, oh, it still gets me. And it's my third favorite movie, because it's a reminder of what I went through and what I've overcome. And it's different. When I watched it, I was sad. I'm not sad. It's just, oh my gosh, all I had to do was just move my foot. And I wouldn't have done those panels. I wouldn't have done anything if I did that. So yeah. So that movie really touched me in more ways than the people made the movie could ever know. The last movie that changed everything was The Black Phone. Because I was severely bullied. And I didn't have anyone to save me like he did. And so when he was in that basement and he felt defeated, he couldn't get out. Everyone tried to help him. But his one friend came back and said, you have a way out. Use what you have. And
again with that phrase.
And it was like, what do you have? Like, what do you mean? This is a grown man and I'm this kid. He said, you have an arm. Because he was a baseball player and he was very good at throwing. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, obviously you can't throw anything in there. But he was like, the lifeline that you're using is the lifeline you're going to have to use. And I'm going to go away. So he had to take the phone, and that's what he had to use. Mm-hmm. But once he took the phone thing off, that was it. And you're on your own. But he showed him, he said, just swing. And he kept showing him till he disappeared. I'm sorry. Oh my God. And it just reminded me of now, use what you have. And then that's when my friend, he said, you have experience. You have something, you have a way of talking to people. You have a way of seeing movies that people can't. And use that. You be different. And it's okay to not be like everyone else, because that's what I was trying to do when I first started out doing horror movies and beyond. And ever since I took that, and things have been different for me. I was, things have changed the way I see things. So those two movies, they're more messages than what people think, So it was tough seeing The Black Phone. Because as an adult, I had to learn how to take that phone off and swing by myself. And so here I am. So yeah, those two movies are the ones that stay with me forever.
Yeah. Good answers for both.
Very good answers.
There's someone that I know, someone we've actually been hoping to get on the show, who's been struggling with some things lately that hopefully she'll get to hear this, because she's been dealing with some, if not all of the same things, at least many of them, I think.
I'm sorry.
No. One of the things that we have said on our call many times is that we don't shy away from shit like this. I mean,
it's part of the show.
Yeah. There are people out there who may not have heard these things before discussed, or who need to.
Yeah.
So
One thing I want to say, just to me, I feel like it needs clarification because I've been on other podcasts and people have asked me questions, and I've said similar things, but I want make it clear that I never tell my story because I want people to feel sympathy or even empathy. I just want you to understand that you can do whatever you trying to do regardless of what is happening in your life. I should be dead. And just to be honest, I should be. I've tried to take myself out twice. Once I almost succeeded. And people have said I should be dead. Like I heard this growing up. I heard it as a kid. I even told myself I wanted to die at 7 years old. So it's just, no one saved me. I did this on my own. I'm sitting here on my own because I had to make a choice to save me. That's why I was able to grab the phone and call my friend and stuff like that. That's why I was able to take the rope off my neck because there was nobody there in that garage. So my story has already been told. I lived it and I'm living it. So, but for someone who struggles with going through the motions and trying to figure out what they want to do with themselves, do with themselves and how to cope, it's hard. It sucks. I mean, it sucks. But hope and wanting to change makes a big difference before you can actually change.
Yeah.
Because once you hit hopelessness, you're a goner. And that's being a person who was there. And it's hard to get out. It's extremely hard to get out, but you can. And I just want people to hear that you can survive. You can do this. It's hard as fuck. You're going to cry. It's going to hurt. It's going to be shitty. It's going to be all these things, but use it as strength. And that's what I've done. Use what you have to survive. And that's what I've been doing. So I just want people to know that please don't feel sorry for me. I've already been through it. Start working on yourself and use my life as an example that you can make it. It's going to be hard, but you can. So,
two things.
You ever thought about being a motivational speaker? Because, yeah. No, that's...
I've heard that, but I do that when I do like certain interviews with certain movies with people.
Yeah.
Or, I mean,
and obviously joking. I wouldn't want, open up like this for a living 7 days a week.
No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't.
But no, your story is very inspiring. Like you said, you got the lowest of the low. And all it takes is, and I understand the significance even more now from the black phone of picking up that phone, given your personal experience with what happened. But yeah, that's the metaphor right there, is you can get to the bottom of the bottom, but it's still possible to recover from it. And what it takes is that inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of it. Yeah.
And help.
Two things I would share. I also had attempted suicide when I was younger, and I didn't hear this until many, many years later. But something I really liked when I did finally hear it was the phrase that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah, I like that one.
And
it's true.
The problem was that in the moment, I didn't know that it was a temporary problem. I believed that it was a permanent problem.
Yeah.
And in my own writing since then, and I mentioned this in the book that I referred to earlier, that for me, what I came to understand is that the biggest thing I was giving myself by not attempting again, first of all, but something that other people can give to themselves, really is the gift of time. Time to either find a solution or at least to get to a place where they can understand that it is not a permanent problem. Because if you do take yourself out, then you have no more time. So, at that point, were you right? Were you wrong? Who knows? No one will ever know. So, if anything, at the very least, giving yourself a gift of time to find a solution, find anything, to keep moving forward is very important. In your case, you had at that point and have had the time to do the things that you have done and continue to do, which is now turning into success that you didn't have earlier, which obviously is the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that's what makes me powerful in a way, because I had to dig myself out the ditch. I felt like that woman that was in that pool in Poltergeist with those bodies around her, and she was really struggling trying to get out of that water with those bodies, those skeletons and stuff like that. But I felt like that. And I kept sliding down right back into it. But eventually she got out, and I feel like that. But now that I'm out, and I'm aware, it's like the Matrix. The thing that now that I have to fight and work hard for is not wanting to go back into the Matrix, because I get to the point where I'm, this is hard, and I could feel myself sliding, wanting to get hooked back into the machines, because that's the norm I went through for a majority of my life. It's comfort. And so just like a druggie or an ex-druggie or an alcoholic, you're always those things, because every day you have to fight not to be those things again. And I don't care who you are. It's a recovery every day. And that's how it is for me. It's easy to slip back. And I think what's keeping me, took me a while to notice this, from slipping back is being in the horror community. Because where else, if I stop doing horror, what other horror, then I will remember the horror that I went through. It's almost a distraction, because at least I'm still in where I feel comfortable in, but it's not the danger part. It's this part.
It's your sandbox.
Yeah. And I don't get paid for anything I do. So everything anyone has seen, I don't get paid. I still have a 9-to-5, and I don't want to do the 9-to-5. I want to do this, but
Chris and I can both relate. Continue.
It's just what it is, but hopefully that will change soon. I mean, I came into spaces where I was given an opportunity of a lifetime to stand in front of producers and being mentored by producers now. And so it's nothing I would never think of. And I went to film school and I went to art school and all these things, but I never thought, I could skip past certain things now because I have the resource. I have someone there, and it's like, okay, I can't miss out, because I bust my ass to get here. And I want to tell my side of horror the way I see it and the way I think it's interesting. But we'll get to that soon. but yeah. So
depending on how real you go, the world may not be ready for it.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation. I've pitched a story, and a friend of mine was like, damn.
No.
He didn't say no like it's bad. He was like, oh, that's too real. It's right. Real. And I said, well, that's
what's scary. Yeah. Real stuff is scary.
And he was like, well, we're going to have to tweak it, because it's if people are watching that and it's like, oh shit, it says true story because it's true. It's not based on, and it's not, I want true. And And I just think, how this is based on a true story and they have to do things to fabricate. No, I got stories that actually happen that way, where it's tragedy and bloody and gory and it's real. And so
it's funny that there are people in the horror community who do look for stuff like that. But then there are also people who are like, no, I don't want to know if this was real. Like this is where I go to escape.
Yeah.
Well, then you just don't tell them. Like during the interview, you're just like, I just thought of this. I was on a vacation in Bahamas or something. I make up a story, but eventually later in the DVD, I'll be like, guess what?
Yeah.
Oops, this is real.
In the director's commentary.
Yeah, this really happened. These brains really did fly out. Like, what?
I had a similar experience with Girl Next Door, actually. I watched it and I was like, wow, that was horrific. I can't believe people come up with this shit.
No, that was...
Oh, it was real.
Yeah.
People are awful.
They are awful. Especially the ones closer to you are the most awful.
Yeah.
And they and then they don't see it and they gaslight you and all that stuff. And then, my sister living her life. I'm the one, I'm the aftermath. And I have to struggle every day, and I have to keep going. But believe me, there were times I sit there and was like, oh, if I had a gun, if I had a knife to my neck, not for her, for me. I don't believe in taking anybody out. I'd rather take myself out. But I don't think that now. But at the time, it was, I had to clarify that. But at the time, it was like, I would go to my dad's grave and sit there and just like, I can't do this. I want to be with you. I would actually say it to the grave. Like, I want to be with you. I'd rather be here because I am nothing. I'm horrible. I'm ugly. Nobody likes me. I get treated like shit. My mom abandoned me. Like, my sisters beat me. Like, it was just, what am I here for? But.
Isn't it an interesting and fucked up judo move that abusers pull all the shit that they pull and then dump all that shit on the people that they've been abusing?
That is kind of a fucked up judo move, yeah.
Yeah. But it happens. I'm the result of my life. But, it's the way it is. I just have to keep going.
And so you're doing a pretty good job of keeping going.
Thank you. It's a struggle every day.
And not dumping it on somebody else.
No, because I know how that feels. Oh, I know how that feels to be sad. Okay, there's sad and there's sad. There's the sad that hits your chest where it feels like your heart is going to drop. That's sad. I've been there many, many times, and I don't want no one to feel that way. Never. But people do. But all you could do is help them and say, it's okay. It's okay to be that sad. What's not okay, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. It's okay to feel those horrible thoughts. You feel them, embrace them, but you're going to have to understand that it's a thought. It does not mean you do it. That
I don't want to cut you off, but I actually have something relevant here that I think is very good. So in my own recovery process, I was dealing with the exact same thing that you're talking about here, where I had something happen in my life where I felt like I needed to do something and just had this super strong urge feeling like I needed to do something and I didn't know what else to do. And so I had this moment where I decided to hand it over to a higher power and said, if I were to hand this over to my higher power, what would my higher power say? And the answer I got was, I didn't tell you to do anything. And it was like this light bulb moment where I realized recognition is a verb. The only thing I have to do with a feeling is recognize it. And then anything that I do after that is a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But growing up, because I grew up in the church, and I don't believe in anything, but I believe in everything. So it's whatever anyone believes, that's what you believe. I believe that you have to be the one to make choices because you got to get out of it. People say I'll put it in certain hands, but you're just sitting there. Like, I feel like you still have to do something.
You got to put in the work.
Yeah, and I've put in some work. I put in.
A friend of mine. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go. I'm done.
I had a friend in one of these 12-step groups that I have attended that had shared that she had something, a little painting that she had on one of the walls of her house. It was a painting of a sailor and a rowboat out at sea in a storm, and the caption on it said, "Pray to God, but row toward shore."
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a good one because it's true.
Yeah.
You can't just float. You got to do. You got to do something still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like an even simpler version of that I've heard is, pray for sunshine, but hope for
Plan.
sunshine, but prepare for rain.
Yeah, something like that. hope for the best, plan for the worst. How about that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I'm going to ask two questions here that are not related to horror and cover your entire life.
Okay.
I think we already know the answer to one of them, which is,
very good.
What movie would you say you've watched more times than any other?
That'd be The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the second question that we ask, because it's not always the one that you've seen more times than any other, is what would be your favorite movie? In your case, I think it's also The Thing.
It's The Thing.
Also The Thing.
The Thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see any kind of common thread? I'm getting there. Do you see any common threads about what kinds of horror you like? Cannibalism, occult, metaphysical?
Actually, other people have told me you must really like sci-fi because you watch a lot of it and you talk a lot of it, and it's like, no, if the movie's great, I talk about it. When I first started getting into the horror, I got back into horror because I was watching a lot of romantic comedies, and it would make me cry because, man, I'm single and have no body, so it was kind of like, oh, I wish I was. You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally, like I want to be like that. So I would cry all the time. And I was like, oh, you really cry in horror movies. But man, I started coming across some horror movies that just took me to a different level. And I think a lot of those movies, especially coming out of the pandemic, are really character driven and trauma driven. Especially like Smile, that talks about suicide.
Yeah.
But it's not direct, but that creature is the suicide and it consumes you.
It's understood.
So, and also, The Black Phone and the one I just saw with Nicolas Cage. It's not horror, but it's the Dream Scenario. That was just tragic. I think it was Dream Scenario. Is it called Dream Scenario?
Is it the one where it was him and
Everybody's Mind?
Pedro Pascal?
No, when he's in Everybody Else's Mind.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me about that one. I totally forgot. I need to watch that.
Yeah, that one was, oh my goodness. I was just, felt so bad for this man like the entire time. But yeah, there's movies that are just, even the one about the aliens, no one could hear you scream or something like that.
Oh, no one will save you.
That was really good. Getting there, but no one will save you.
Yeah, there was a lot of implied metaphor there too for like being an outcast and like just
and
I guess being different.
And the movie was exactly what it was. The title was. No one was. You had yourself. You got to do yourself.
Yeah,
and and Boogeyman. Like, please, I cried on Boogeyman. I think it's Boogeyman. The new So, that's a good one. That one's a good story.
Okay. So this would normally be the spot where we talk about any common themes that have been cropping up and then ask a couple questions about how the horror genre intersects with those. I think most of this is going to be pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it anyway. So, I mean, identifying either with certain characters or certain situations related to your own personal experience, phrases that you've used about, this is real. The obvious answer of why those things are important to you is because you lived them. Mm-hmm. And then, the next question after that is why horror? Because you couldn't explore some of these topics in other genres. And I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind is the extent to which you want to talk about these things. I mean, you're not going to be able to get to the depth that you want to go in a rom-com. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I think I just may sound a little weird or kind of different. I don't know, may contradict things, but watching rom-coms, those feel like it would never happen. Obviously, it never happened. Like, I would never find true love. I feel that way. I'm just being honest here. I feel like I would never have someone love me, or they would see me or choose me. Whereas in the horror, everyone is fair game. Everyone is
for death.
Yeah, I know, but
sorry,
death is more certain. I get it. Like there's certain things that always will happen in a horror movie. In a rom-com, you don't know. He may not get the girl, but somebody's gonna die.
Sorry, I couldn't help that.
Well, if you look at it that way, yeah. But yeah, that's just how I guess I see it. Romantic comedies are more real in a sense that, that's never going to happen for me, you know, because that's how I feel. But when I watch a horror movie, unless it's specific character, you know, like I talked about The Conjuring or something, but just watching it, it's like, no, this is not real. I know this is not real, but because I really lived horror movies, the horror movie life, really in life. So when I'm watching a horror movie, it's like, it's like I'm comparing it to my own life because I know that's not real. Yeah. But the romance ones, oh man, I'm never going to find somebody to love me like that. The way I love, like the way I should be loved. So I know it sounds kind of weird.
No, I mean,
find someone who looks at you the way Pedro Pascal looks at Nicolas Cage.
Why did you bring up Pedro Pascal?
It's a meme.
No, it's a scene from that movie with him, like the weight of unfathomable truth or something.
I thought you knew that I adored that man. I adore him. I'm trying to get him to come to Midsummer Screen because he loves horror movies.
Does he?
So
really, he should be in more horror movies. He's a good actor.
See. He's my husband. He doesn't know it. So, the thing is, I know I would never get that. I know, so I would never be heartbroken. So that's why I'm single.
It's your pipe dream spouse, like being Alexander Daddario.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you think that we have overlooked, or something that we didn't ask a question about that you think is relevant, or maybe something you thought of earlier in the call but didn't get a chance to say because the conversation took a left turn?
Just enjoy life the best way you can with whatever movie you want to watch. I mean, don't take them seriously. They're just movies. You could criticize them, you could do whatever, but please don't tell people don't watch a horror movie. No matter how bad it is, because it could change. That movie that you hate could change the life of someone else. Mm-hmm. Making movies is hard enough. Yeah. I've tried, and it's just hard. And believe me, if you put it out there, someone will rip it apart, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but just don't tell people not to watch movies. I don't care what you say about them. I would never, believe me, I've seen Troll 2. I can't stand that movie. It is the number one movie I just find repulsive. But I will tell the next person, enjoy it. Because there's people who do. So.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. To anybody out there listening, I mean, go check out Ivotres' channel, Horror Movies and Beyond. The two things that you mentioned should be edited by the time this comes out. So also check out any links that she sends us. We'll, again, have her episodes or her bio page set up on our episodes list on our webpage. So we've got that. Anything else that you want to pitch before we hit the closing?
No, I think that's it. I'm all tapped out. That was Okay. So
All right. So again, thank you to you for your time, and thank you to everybody out there listening. Please do come visit us at horrormakeshappy.com. We'll have her bio page there. We've also got a list of people that we'd like to talk to. If you could get us in touch with any of those, please let us know. If there's anybody that you'd like to have added to the list, let us know. Other than that, buy merch, buy coffee, support us on Patreon, tell a friend, all that kind of fun stuff.
We like coffee.
Yes.
Buy us a coffee.